I've got a bit of a smirk on my face, obviously. This video is... it'll be entertaining to see what responses I get. Or comments, I should say, to the video. Right. Why have I gone and bought a Bang and an Olufsen CRT tube? Don't know, I've got to be honest. There is a reason why I've done it, but I've got CRTs coming out my backside at the moment, I really have, and I don't need this, but I suppose really in response to Future Mat 5 really, as regards to him buying the B&O and giving us all an insight to how great this CRT is, how good it looks, and also the hidden feature on most of the MX range of CRTs. Not sure if it's on all of them, but certainly most of them, certainly the later ones, is this sexy de-interlace feature, which I've done my own video on as regards to actually finding a version of that on the Sony CRTs, although not as nice as the Bang & Olufsen version, because on the Sony you've got that channel number in the top left hand corner. Not that it's a major issue, to be honest, but obviously it's better if you haven't got it. So all that bundled into one nice neat package, and also I think some of the comments that I've got back from, I suppose from Matt, but more importantly I think from Darren Walshsock, who said that the Bang & Olufsen basically pissed all over his Trinitron. Now, call me a bit of a skeptic, but I don't believe that at the moment. I'm not in a position to actually test that side by side, and I'll explain why in a second, but I don't honestly believe that at the moment. I could be wrong, if I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong, but I don't think that's true. So if it's not true, guys, I'm basically going to rip you all a new arse. But anyway, it'll be interesting to find out. So I suppose first off, you need a remote control for it, because you can't do anything other than switch it on and swap terrestrial channels without the remote control. So you need a remote control. Now you can go and get a universal remote control that will do most of the features as far as I'm aware, but if you want to get into the service menu, in fact that's not strictly true, and again I'll come on to that in a minute, if you want to easily get into the service menu without having to faff around with anything else, and also if you want to get into this de-interlace feature, I believe you need a proper remote control. You can't use one of these normal sort of universal remotes. But again, I'll come on to that again in a second. Pretty common in the UK on eBay. You can get them on eBay. They're not hard to get a hold of. They range from, depending on how lucky you are, for a 21-inch version you can pay anywhere from say £35 up to say £50 for a 21-inch version. Normally you, depending on how far you want to travel, you may be limited to the type of TVs that you can look for as regards to areas, because if you don't want to travel that much, you've got to look in certain areas. It was pretty strange here. I live in Northamptonshire, and there was about either three or four that came up in the close vicinity. So I was sport for choice when I actually went and bought mine. But most of them seem to be in London or the southern part of the UK. So you go and buy the B&O. I've got the MX4002. It is, for all intended and purposes, exactly the same as the MX4000, which is the 21-inch version. The only difference is that my version will take something called the BO link. I won't go into that, but basically it's just another way of integrating that with other B&O devices. So you don't actually need that. So it's not the later version. The later version was a 4200, I think. But that's just some slight changes, nothing major. But so going back to the remote control side of it, what you can do is there is a place in Germany that if you do, because you may be limited to actually what you can buy in the area that you're in, and you may have to grab what comes up or try and bid on what comes up and whatever you're prepared to pay. There is a place in Germany that you can actually buy a copy of the Beolink 1000 remote control, which will do you nearly everything that you need to do. Apparently, apart from the service menu, which I don't actually believe, but basically that's the remote that I've ordered, because my TV was just a TV, it didn't come with any remote at all. The remotes on eBay go for a shitload of cash. The Beolink 1000 remotes go for about £20 just on their own, but the BO3 or the BO4, the one that you need to access the service mode easily, they go for anywhere between 40 to 60 quid. If you can get one cheaper than that, you're doing extremely well. I believe Darren got one fairly cheap. Anyone that knows anything about the remote control will never put the remote control with the TV, and they'll split it. They'll get a lot more money. It's absolutely crazy how much the remotes go for, but they're like stupid price from B&O. You can still buy them, and they're still a current remote as regards to controlling a lot of the B&O stuff. And the BO3 or BO3, BO4 are, I think it's BO4 actually, the BO4 remote does look really nice. It's the one with the LCD screen on the top, so you know that that's a BO4 remote. And like I said, I mean, they can go for stupid money on eBay. Or not that they can go for stupid money, they do go for stupid money. But there is a place in Germany, and I'll give the link in the bottom of the comments of this video, that supply a copied version of the Beolink 1000. Now when I say copied, it doesn't look the same, it looks like a normal remote, but it's got all of the keys on there that the Beolink 1000's got. So it's not like a universal remote, it is a cheaper version of the Beolink 1000. And that shipped from Germany has cost me just under £17, which I thought was pretty reasonable. I bought the TV for 30, so I've got a set there for £47. Now I haven't got the remote yet, and this video will be done over a matter of time, but obviously I'll put it all up together. So as soon as I get that remote, I want to try and see if I can get into the service mode in it by using the remote control itself. Stuff I wrote is in a similar situation, where he bought a TV and he bought it with the Beolink 1000 remote, and you can't get to the service menu. But I can't believe that you can't get into it with the remote control. So I'm going to have a look at that, and obviously I'll update part of this video. When I get the remote, I'll give it a bash, and hopefully I can add some more to this video. But basically what I've done is that you can get into the service mode without using the remote. You can basically bridge two jumpers on the chassis, and the majority of this video is showing you how to do that. It's a step-by-step guide. It's really easy, guys, and you don't actually need a remote full stop to get into the service menu, and this bypasses all that, but you'll need a remote to actually scroll through the service menu and enter things in the service menu, but you don't need a remote control to get into the service menu, which is a good bonus, and it costs you whatever it costs you for a switch and a bit of wire basically in a bit of time. It's really that easy. So like I said, the majority of the video will go through that. A bit of conversation about the TV, really. For a CRT TV, or for a TV full stop, it looks absolutely awesome. Hopefully from the video introduction that you see of me scanning around the TV, it looks absolutely awesome. It really does look really nice. It actually looks modern. It looks modern as in modern now, even though it's a CRT, which is strange because obviously the piano black stuff, I mean these TVs were from the 90s, but the piano black look has come back again. It has come back into fashion, and they actually look fashionable. It really does look fashionable, and they are a lot thinner than a normal CRT of the same type of size. I looked at my Sony CRT behind me, and I measured from front to back. That's about 20 inches, or just over 20 inches, and the Bang & Olufsen is 16 inches depth, so that's 4 inches less. I mean, that's quite a lot, that is. But you just look at the TV and it looks absolute class. It really does look nice. I haven't been able to use it yet in the console, so I can't give any feedback on the image quality, but I will do that as and when I get the remote and get that sorted. So it is a very, very classy device, to be honest. I mean, I think these Sonys look nice. personally, but this just blows it into the weeds as regards to the way it looks. Like I said previously, it will be good to see what the image clarity is like compared to a Sony. I have tuned my Sony picture by going to the service menu and I've played around with the chassis. I'm not expecting it to blow it away. I'm really not. But we'll see. We'll see. Right, typical Fagan RS500 styly. I've got the back ripped off of my Bang & Olufsen MX4002. So I just thought we'd have a quick smidge around the back of it and sort of a few observations so far that I've made. Now, first of all, I suspect many of you guys will know that as with many manufacturers, Bang & Olufsen never actually made their own tubes. And this particular tube in the 4002 is made by Philips, and ironically enough, it was manufactured, if I just pull that over there, manufactured in Old Blighty in the UK. Pretty amazing that. So yeah, so this is a Philips tube in here. So it'll be interesting to see what this looks like when it's all fired up and everything, because like I said, people are saying, oh, it pisses all over the Trinitron and all that lot. Yeah, we'll see, boys, we'll see. Something you notice on these TVs, or certainly on this model, and I suspect the MX range are the same, you got this like tube in here, and it's got in it some kind of wadding, and it's a wadding. Now, this explains in some way why the sound quality on the Bang & Ol's, on the B&O's, is really deep and really nice and enriched. Part of it would be down to the quality of the speaker, but also this tube in here. Basically, what that is that it is baffling the bass, so you're getting a bit of a bass box effect really there, which is making the sound a lot better. So that's one of the reasons why you've got that contraption that's installed in the side of the TV. Right, we've got the main circuit boards around here. So if we look at the back of the unit, this here is the back of the neck. So that's the neck card, that's what they call the neck card. That bit there, you've got to be really careful with that, as I've said on previous videos. If you knock that inadvertently, and it doesn't take much to do it, you don't have to whack it, but if you knock it inadvertently, you can snap the actual neck off, which basically, once you've done that, it's foobarred as regards to CRT. Now, what we're interested in, and I'm going to have to get my iPhone out here, but we are looking at one of the methods that you can choose to use to get into the service mode on these TRVs, on these TVs, if you haven't got the proper remote, which is the BO3, BO4, whatever, which one it is. You can't get into the service mode easily with the BO Link 1000, or I don't think you can. I may change that opinion later on in this video once I get my remote delivered, but assuming you can't use that, you will have to do a bit of jiggery pokery on this chassis. It is an absolute piece of piss. I haven't actually done it yet, but I can see what I need to do, and it is really straightforward, and I'm actually going to hopefully do a step-by-step guide on this video on how to do that. Right, for this part of the video I'm going to switch to use my iPhone, so the quality will change somewhat, but it's got a flash on there, so we can actually see what we're doing on this chassis. So if I pull back, that is the, and again it's going out of focus a bit, but just ignore that, that's the back of the TV. So we're looking at the neck card, and we're coming all the way down, and we're coming down to where the SCART sockets are. And this is the area where we need to look at, where basically or effectively we've got to wire a switch in. Now let me grab a biro so I can point to you where you need to look at connecting to. It is there. So it's that point and that point. You see those 2 points there? And it's a service mode. And that jumper is P700. So what we're effectively going to do, according to the service manual, all you got to do is briefly bridge that.
Now obviously you don't want to keep taking the back off every time you do this, so what I'm going to do is actually wire in a switch between those two contacts, and I'm going to mount it to the external case of the MX, so basically any time you want to get into the service mode you can quickly get into it, and it is an absolute piece of piss to do that. So all I need to do is, I could find a proper contact to actually go on these two prongs. I don't actually think I've got anything, to be honest, but you can get them, you can buy them, but I don't think I've got anything to hand. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder a wire onto there and a wire onto there. I'm going to take those wires onto a switch, not a proper throw switch, but I'll show you the type of switch I'm going to use, and I'm going to mount this to the actual TV case as neatly as possible. So I'll go to that next step of me actually soldering wires onto these two contacts. Now hopefully you can see on the video there that I actually managed to find a fly lead in my drawer of wires and connectors and components. So I'm actually, well, I'm not lucky because you can buy these, but I was lucky enough to find one, so I don't have to mess around soldering. So all I've basically done is just push that end connector onto the two prongs. It doesn't matter which way it goes round, it's totally irrelevant. And basically these two ends I'm going to shove onto a switch. Now because this actual bridge only needs to be momentarily made, so it doesn't need to be permanently switched, you only need a momentary push switch. Now I've just popped out this morning and been to Maplin's, so I wasn't actually quite sure whether or not it had to be a push on push off locking switch, or whether I could use a momentary push switch. So I actually bought both. Now I know I've been to Maplin's, I've been stiffed up, but I needed them today. You can get these a lot cheaper on eBay. I mean, they weren't sort of massively priced, but I could have got them cheaper on eBay. But anyway, so we don't need the push on push off locking switch, so we'll bin that. What we do need is a momentary switch. Basically a momentary switch is literally you push the tit in, or the nipple I should say, on the top, and it will only switch or make contact over that switch whilst you've got it pressed in, which is perfect for this. You could actually use a throw switch, but it just means that you've got to put it to one position and then put it back to the original position. So this is the better way of doing it. So this is the switch that I'm going to install. So again, so it doesn't lock into place or anything like that. That's just a momentary, what they call a momentary switch. So basically when that's pushed in, that will be bridging those two contacts on the chassis, which will enter me into service mode. Now I know it works because I've just tried it, not with this switch, but I've just tried basically bridging the two wires that I've got coming off, so I know it does work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder those two connectors there onto my two wires. In this case they're red and black, but like I said, it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever how you solder them. It is totally irrelevant. All you want to do is bridge. And I'm going to then mount this, and it's quite a nice switch. I picked a black one to keep it a bit discreet. You know, I don't want a big massive steel throw switch on the back of my monitor. And I've got to think about where to actually mount it. Ideally you want it on the back, but that's not accessible. So what I'm going to do is actually mount it on the back, obviously on the back of the chassis, sorry, on the back of the monitor, on the back of the CRT even. I'm going to mount it on the back of the CRT monitor case, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to mount it on the back at the top, and it is a round a sort of aperture, so I'm going to cut an aperture in and try and make that as neat as possible. Because it's black, it'll just melt in with the rest of the surroundings. So I'm going to get onto that. Right then guys, so there we have the new switch that's been soldered onto this. That's basically what the connector looks like, and that's not zooming in very well, so I apologise for that, but it's not going to focus very well, is it? But basically that's the connection, just two little holes there basically. Right, there's the switch mounted, and I've mounted the switch there. Now I didn't really want to drill a hole. I mean, I could have done it, it wouldn't have been an issue, but I didn't really want to do that if I didn't have to. Luckily you can just knock a couple of these plastic vents out and just rest the switch in there, which is actually what that is. It's just rested and it's tight enough, it's not going to move anywhere, it's fine. What I did want to do, and I did actually try, was to use the same principle but use it on the grill that's underneath the handle part, so you couldn't actually see it. So all I'd need to do is just reach around and just press the button. Unfortunately, because of the depth of the switch, it was hitting the top of the CRT tube, which I didn't really want, so I've moved it. If I'd had a bit more enthusiasm, I could have got round it, I'm sure, but it'll do there. It'll be absolutely fine. It's fine for what I need, so that's where the switch is mounted. And finally, there is the switch in context to the rest of the chassis casing. And as you can see, it's black. It looks neat enough to me. I haven't got a problem with that at all. So that is the service mode switched. Sorry, that is the service mode switch, all wired up and all plumbed into the chassis. So this is basically what happens when you smash a Bang & Olufsen up. When you try and balance it on a chair, piss off to go and find some batteries for your new remote you just got, and it falls off the chair and it smashes. If it had just been that cosmetic damage, I perhaps could have lived with it. You know, I could have fixed it, glued it, whatever. But actually the tube's fucked. It's actually what we call in the trade fucked. Right, it's not focusing particularly well, but you can see there you go, that is absolutely mullered. That's what's known as necking the tube. Basically the back of the neck's been chopped off, and when it dropped on the floor, the case obviously come down hard on the top and smashed it, and that's what's fucked it basically. So yeah, so this is going to end up going on the tip in about the next hour. What I might do is actually take off as many boards as I can. Right, I've just raped, look at that, absolutely mullered. I've just raped the TV basically for everything I can get out of it that's any use. There's all the main chassis down there. You're probably thinking, why have I just done that? Well, a certain individual who will remain nameless bought a B&O TV, and it was fucked, it didn't work properly. And basically a transformer had gone, one of the main transformers, and he got tucked up a little bit as regards to getting it repaired, and it cost him 250 quid. Basically they'd have swapped out a board from something. So basically I've got a full replacement kit there for a 4000, so if I get a problem with a replacement TV, and it's got spare parts, that won't cost me 250 quid. Now I'm not entirely sure whether this is going to come out particularly clearly on the video, but what I've done here is I've actually removed, and it's down there, excuse all my makeup, sorry, my girlfriend's makeup, seriously it's not mine, it's my missus's makeup. That there is the contrast or the high contrast screen, whatever they call it, but basically the plastic or glass, depending on what version of TV you've got, front that goes over the tube, and that's the tube there. Now you probably won't notice this. The reason why I've taken it off is because I want to see the difference without the screen on the front. Now the reason why I suspect the screen is effective on these tubes is because of the actual tube itself. The actual tube itself is pretty grey. It really is a light sort of grey. Sony Trinitrons are quite black, so that's the Bang & Olufsen, and that's a Sony. Now again, I don't know if you're going to pick that up because it's got light shining on it, so it's not going to look as black as. But believe me, the Sony tube is a lot darker than the Bang & Olufsen tube, and there is a fair amount of difference in my opinion, of the quality of the image, the punch and so forth that you get from the Bang & Olufsen compared to the Sony, and Sony being better. But I'll come back to that in a short while. Finally got all the stuff together as regards to getting a working B&O. You've seen throughout the video the trials and tribulations I've had regarding getting hold of one of these mofos. I've got to the point now I've done various testing. I've set the TV up as a good level playing field really against my Sony Trinitron tube. And really the real purpose of this now is to actually start comparing the two sets and to give you guys a bit of an insight, in my opinion, between the two sets, pluses and minuses and so forth. I thought the first thing to go through really would be the remote control. If we cast our minds back to the sort of start of the video, and the initial Bang & Olufsen that I bought didn't have the original remote with it, and as I'm sure you guys are aware, that unless you get a proper remote for one of these sets, you're going to struggle to get some of the features out of it. In reality, as regards to one of these sets, that is to do things in the service mode. And again, like I've said at the start of this video, or during the beginning of this video, on these sets you don't need to get the B04 remote. That's something you don't need. You can fit a switch to the chassis. I'll show you how to do that. I've redone that again on this set that isn't all broken, and it works and it's fine. It's absolutely fine. It's all singing and all dancing now as regards to get to the service mode. Now, something I have found out with regards to accessing the service mode with the B04 remote is that Bang & Olufsen on the MX4000 series, so that's the MX4000 and also the MX4002, and the later versions of those sets that actually came with a B04 remote control, and not all the sets did. They either came with the BO Link 1000, which is that one, or the B04. I haven't got the B04. If it comes with a B04, it's more than likely got the correct firmware on it to actually utilise and make use of the B04, i.e. getting into the service menu without having to switch to the PCB, which is what I've done on this. This particular set will not allow you to use a B04 remote to its fullest extent, i.e. to get to the service mode. So there is a bit of an issue there, so you need to be aware of that. Not all sets will work properly with the B04 remote, but it's not a showstopper because you can fit a switch to the board and get to the service mode. So I just thought I'd just mention that and get that out of the way. As regards to actually getting hold of a remote, because a lot of these TVs on eBay aren't being sold with the remote, because the remote is worth a fair amount of money, even the BO Link 1000. Now this TV that I've just recently bought, so this is the second one I've got, and I hope not to drop this one. It actually came with a BO Link 1000 remote, which is that one there, and it is different than the B04. The B04's got the LCD screen at the top. Awesome remote, lovely feel to it, nice and heavy. They're metal-based remote controls, real good quality remotes. But this is the BO Link 1000, and on this you can't access the service menu. You have to do the sort of adjustment or the modification to the chassis, which isn't a big deal. It's like a 15-20 minute job, and that's all it is, a job done. And it's absolutely fine. So you don't need a BO4 remote, you just need a Bang & Olufsen remote, so it's either BO Link 1000 or the BO4. Something I did on the first set that I bought, because I had no remote with it at all, I had to go and source another remote, and instead of buying a BO Link 1000 or a BO4 on eBay, and they are fairly expensive, BO4s can go for anywhere between 40 and 70-80 quid depending on how lucky you are, and the BO Link 1000s are around about 20 to 30 pound again, depending on how lucky you are. There is a company in Germany that actually sell a BO Link 1000 function remote control copy, and it's
this one here, and I actually sent off and bought this one when I bought my first TV because I had no remote with it. It's a lot cheaper than buying this, and it does exactly the same as this. So it gives you all the functionality that this will give you. And this cost delivered £17 from Germany. Bought it from eBay. It was something like, I don't know, £14 something plus about £2.50 delivery. It came in just over a week, and that provides exactly the same functionality as this. So it won't give you the functionality of the BO4, but it will give you exactly the same as this. So don't get hell bent about getting a MX4000 or an MX series a Bang & Olufsen CRT without remote control, because you can buy a copy of the B&O MX4000, so you can do 99% of the functionality. The B&O MX4000 and the copy will enable you to get the de-interlace mode fine on the MX, so you don't have to worry about that either. And the only thing you've got to think about differently is how to access the service menu, if indeed you think you need to, and you won't necessarily need to do that, but it's good to have that facility, especially for retro consoles, because you can mess around with the geometry side of it. So that's the remote control side. Again, if you guys have got any questions on this, just bang me a comment and I'll answer you best I can, and I will, if I remember, I'll try and put the link of where you can get the BO remote from eBay. So again, you can get that copied version. But apart from looking different, it's got all of the buttons correspond to the same buttons and functions as they do on the BO Link. So it's not a universal remote. It's specifically for the MX range to replace or replicate the BO MX4000, and it's cheaper. So that would be my recommendation, to buy one of these. So I've sort of spoke a bit about the TV really, but it's without a doubt a absolute classy looking TV. It really is, and Future Matt made a good sort of case about how good a quality the TV is, and it is. I mean, that is totally undeniable. Let's forget the quality of the TV as regards to its external prowess, and let's do a more meaningful and balanced comparison against the picture quality and sound quality, but certainly the picture quality against my Sony Trinitron tube. Now, something that I pulled up and actually mentioned in an earlier part of the video was the fact that the MX, this size of the MX, the MX4000, which is a 21-inch tube version, actually uses a Philips tube. As soon as I saw that, I thought, oh, here we go. I cannot see this being better than my Sony Trinitron. Philips tubes are fine, but in my opinion, in the 90s, certainly early 90s, early to mid 90s, the Sony Trinitron tube, getting words out, was, in my opinion, the best CRT tube you could buy. Just awesome quality, clarity, sharpness. It just had everything going for it against the competition, in my view. I have done some back-to-back tests. I've set the tube up the best I can. The only thing it does need a slight tweak on is the centering, the horizontal centering, just to slightly bring it over a touch. I've done as much adjustment as I can on the service menu. It needs a tweak on the chassis really to bring it over slightly more. It's not much out, but it needs just a slight tweak, and I may do that. I may not. But apart from that, I've set it up as much as I've set up my Sony Trinitron, because I did go through and set that up off the chassis and through the service menu for picture clarity rather than geometry stuff. There wasn't really anything wrong with the geometry on that. Looking at the picture on the Bang & Olufsen, let's go through it in a few stages. The clarity of the picture, it does look nice. It does look nice. It looks very nice, in fact. The colour reproduction's good, but this is where I get the first negative point, and there's a couple of negative points in my opinion about the tube they're using in these sets against the Sony Trinitron, and I'm probably starting to get a bit anal here, but I hope it comes across from me being balanced, because I'm just using my opinion and my knowledge of tubes to sort of get over the differences between the different types of sets, you know, to give you guys a bit of an insight really. First thing is I'm finding that the image on my Trinitron has got a bit more punch to it. If you put the images side by side, and there's a waste of time me doing this on camera because I doubt it will pick it up, it'll be a worthless exercise. And I haven't actually got two consoles. I suppose I could try and split the signal, but I'm not going to. And you have to take my word for it. I'm not being, I'm not making anything up. It is what it is, and I'm seeing what I'm seeing. But the punch from the Sony tube, it's got a bit more punch to it. I don't know how to explain it really, but the colours look a bit more vivid. It just looks, for me, for retro stuff, it's got that bit of extra punch. It's not because the contrast is set differently, because I don't have high contrast, because if you start cranking the contrast up, you will start to cause some kind of blooming effect and a bit of blur into the image, and I don't want that. I want it to be as sharp as possible without it being dull, if you see what I mean. So if you apply too much contrast, you may think it's making the image brighter, but you'll start to lose some definition and clarity. So you've got to be careful there how much contrast you apply. And I've tried to keep that to quite a minimum really. I don't want to give it too much contrast, but with similar contrast levels, and Sony Trinitron, it's got a bit more punch to it. So in that way, and the Trinitron gives a better image, in my opinion, for that type of punchiness. Something that is slightly off on this tube, and it doesn't surprise me, is that there's a slight issue with compression down this side of the tube. I mean, it is slight, but I can see it. I can see a slight issue with compression. So if you start to expand the image out and you've got moving images on this side, you'll see that they will be slightly compressed up right at the very sort of last centimetre of the image on this side. I've tried to clean it up best I can, and it's still apparent. On the Sony Trinitron, I've got absolutely, from what I can make out, virtually zero compression. The geometry on that tube is just outstanding. Part of that, undoubtedly, in my opinion, will be because of the tube is a flat square tube. On these it's not. There's a bevel on these tubes. So, and technically whether that causes the problem I don't know, but I've noticed it more on tubes that are curved as opposed to tubes that are flatter. And the Sony's got a flat tube on it as opposed to the Bang & Olufsen. The final thing really about the image side of things is that I find the focus on the Bang & Olufsen, and I have tweaked it, is not quite as sharp universally as the Sony Trinitron. The Sony Trinitron's got a good level of sharpness of focus across the whole of the tube. On the Bang & Olufsen, you tend to lose a bit of focus top and bottom, which again isn't actually that unusual, because normally when you focus on a CRT, when you're tweaking the focus, and this is done on chassis on both of these sets, it's not something you can do by the service manual, is that you normally find, or what you should do is when you do focus a tube in, is you should focus around the centre of that area and not worry about the top and bottom, because quite normally tubes will focus differently top and bottom than what they will around the centre of the area, tube. So you focus around the centre of the tube. I focus the best I can on the centre, on both tubes, and the actual way that focus is retained on the Bang & Olufsen is not as good as it is on the Sony. It just isn't. And I've compared that based on text over the whole screen, so I've got a good level of the same content really over the whole screen. And the Bang & Olufsen is not as sharp at the top and bottom as the Sony Trinitron. Now, I think that's because of the tubes. Future 5's mentioned that to me before offline, that he's got a problem with one of his tubes. It's a slightly different focus on the outside of the tube. it's because of the tube and possibly the way the chassis is being spec'd, but it will be a tube issue primarily, really. So that is a bit of a minus over the Sony Trinitron. I think that's about it really, technically, as regards to comparing the two tubes. Perhaps I'm going to get shot down in flames for this, but I'm not being biased, I'm not being a fanboy in any way, shape or form, but comparing the two types of tubes technically, I think that the Sony Trinitron has the edge overall. I really do. It's not a massive difference between the two, but in my opinion there are pluses with the Sony Trinitron, just based on those three areas. So punch of the image, the overall sharpness, and the I forgot what the other one was. The overall sharpness. Oh, and the compression down one side. The Sony Trinitron hasn't got any compression. If I get a test grid up on my Sony Trinitron from a PCB board, it is, I mean, it's outstanding, it really is. I was pretty shocked actually when I did that some time ago when I first got this tube and put a test grid up. It was absolutely nearly perfect geometry, it really was. It's not perfect on this tube, but it's not a, you know, that's starting to nitpick a bit. I think the reason why I'm going in, and I'm going to make a joke about this, you know, there is a lighter side to this, is that I sort of, I didn't have it rammed down my throat, but Future Mac 5 and Darren Warstock both said to me, oh, you know, Bang & Olufsen, the picture is absolutely phenomenal. It is a good picture, it is. And I remember Darren turning around to me and saying, oh, it's so much better than my Sony Trinitron. All I can say, Darren, is your Sony Trinitron is either not set up very well, or the tube's on its way out, or there's an issue with it, because, you know, the faults that are on the, in my opinion, that are on the Bang & Olufsen, I'm not surprised based on the type of tube that's in it. I'm really not. It doesn't surprise me at all. And like I said, I think the Sony Trinitron tubes, I keep saying that, the Sony Trinitron tubes are absolutely outstanding tubes, they really are, and I'm yet to see a better tube for a consumer CRT, you know, I really am. But I'm starting to nitpick a bit there, but I would certainly say that there's, this doesn't give a better picture than the Sony. If anything, you argue that they are very similar. I would say that you know, purely based on the technical aspects that I've just discussed, that the Sony is a better quality picture, in my opinion. Certainly a better quality picture. The sound as well. I wasn't that impressed with the sound. Again, people have banged on about the sound. This Sony, because it's got sort of these ports on the back, it does provide good bass reflex. It is good on the Bang & Olufsen, but it's not any substantial amount better than Sony. I'd say they're quite similar but different. They give a different type of sound, but they're both good quality in my opinion. And perhaps that's just this particular Sony set. Perhaps some of the earlier ones that didn't have this sort of bass porting on the back didn't sound as good. But yeah, it's, you know, they're both good sets in that respect as regards to sound quality. What else can I talk about? What else can I remember? Oh yeah, the other, certainly one of the key benefits of the Bang & Olufsen over the Sony Trinitron is this de-interlacing feature. I've said before, and I've shown you guys, that you can de-interlace effectively a 480i image on certain Sonys. Mine's one of them. The only disadvantage with that is the fact that you get the page number of CFAX, teletext, whatever you call it, excuse me, up here in the top corner. It doesn't detract from gameplay. On the Bang & Olufsen, you don't get that, so you get the de-interlacing, but you don't obviously get your channel numbers on there. So in that respect, the Bang & Olufsen beats the Sony. But again, when you are comparing them side by side with the image quality thing, and the biggest thing for me is the punch. There is a distinct difference between the two images on that. and overall I'd rather put up with the 100 up here and have the better overall quality of image, in my opinion. But it's still a fantastic hidden feature, really, of the Bang & Olufsen to be able to enable you to do that. So if you've got your PlayStation 2s, I've just tried it with my UK Xbox 360 and Death Smiles, and it looks stunning. It just looks a bit more stunning on the Sony. You know, okay, you've got that channel number at the top, but it doesn't detract from the gameplay. But in that respect, the Bang & Olufsen is slightly better for that, in that specific respect. I mean, there's no denying that the TV looks absolutely stunning, like I said, and they are great sets. They are great sets. The big thing is, will I actually place this set? Sorry, will I place the Sony with this set? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I don't think I will, because I do prefer the picture on the Sony. I do prefer the picture. I sort of went into this with my eyes wide open, thinking, look, even if the Sony wasn't as good, and I was going to not use the Sony, I'd stick it in the garage, because it would be another spare tube in case something happens. I have got spares for this. I've got a complete chassis assembly, so if the chassis goes down, I've got a spare one anyway. But gut feeling is I'll probably retire this to the garage. Gut feeling at the moment. I don't know. I'll have a think about it. I'll have a bit more of a play over the next sort of few days. But look, they are a fantastic set. They really are. But you've got to factor in my opinion, everything about it. The other thing that I think that may be affecting the punch of the sort of image is this screen. Is this contrast screen. It is taking away contrast. In fact, I don't know why they call it a contrast screen. I suppose because of the fact, because the tube itself is very light grey, it's not a dark colour like the Sony tube is. It has a problem, I think, with some of the colouring and actually differentiating between the colour and the black. So that's supposed to make it black, and it does make the background blacker, but it also takes some intensity out of the colours, and I think that is actually affecting that, and along with the actual tube itself, because the tube's different. But that with the tube, that along with the tube as well, is making a difference to the punchiness. It definitely looks more punchy with the front off, but with the front off, you get, in my opinion, you're getting a poor black. So it's 6 or half a dozen the other, which is a bit of a shame, really. But that's down to the tube that they've used, or the type of tubes they're using in these TVs. So you know, it's arguable that Sony don't have to do that because the tube is actually doing it itself. You know, it's giving you that vividness, that punch, without having to have a screen in front of it. Common sense and logic tells you if you're putting something in front of something else as regards to getting light to come through it, and it's blocking some form of that light, it's going to cut down on the intensity. It's got to reduce the intensity. In this case, I think it's reducing that punch, but they've got to do something because the actual tube itself is too grey, it's too light. It needs something to sort of darken it down to get that contrast between dark and light colours, which is actually what it does effectively, but it's affecting the image, in my opinion. So, look, you know, sort of getting back to the theory behind which one you'd probably go for, or what I would overall recommend. It's a great set. It is a great set. It's one of the best sets, you know. And like I said, I think the Sony pips it to the post in several areas, and you have to consider price as well. You have to consider price. Well, I think you have to consider price in the overall view of something. That cost me under £5. That cost me. Okay, forget what that cost me, because that isn't right to do that. Because that actual set, or to get a working set and a remote control, has cost me like nearly £100. But you could be lucky enough and get a set with a remote control for what, £40 at this size. At this size, and the smaller sizes tend to go for a lot more than the bigger sizes do. But 40 to 45 quid you could get one of these with a proper remote. And now you compare that to that for a fiver, you start to question the which one makes more sense. That one definitely makes more sense in my opinion. You know, but for the at the end of the day, what's 40 quid nowadays? And for a set that actually looks, it does look nicer than the Sony. I can't get around that. You know, it does. And you're not going to get a bad set. But in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, and I'm being serious about this. I don't want to come across as a fanboy or anything, but I do prefer the Sony purely because of the technical issues that I feel that this set's got over the Sony. But yeah, it's one of those things. A lot of it's subjective. I've tried not to be subjective because I'm giving you feedback based on a like for like and technical reasons why I'm recommending the Sony over the Bang & Olufsen. But you know, hopefully guys, this has been of interest to you. It's been an eventful and emotional journey for me, certainly. But you know what, this is what it's all about. It's about trying different things and getting those experiences, and you don't get those experiences, you don't learn things, do you? So, you know, it's one of them. So, I really hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. If you've got any comments, anything you want to know about the two sets or whatever, bang me a comment and I'll do my best to answer your questions. Speak to you again soon.